Erotic taboo, sensual touch. Erotic taboo, sensual touch. Touch me, kiss me, squeeze me. 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 Erotic taboo, sensual touch.
Okay, got distracted. Good evening, Instagrammers, YouTubers, Facebookers. You're tuned in to the Intimacy Chronicles. I am your host and creator, Queen Jackie, and to my left,
Quiet Storm, also known as Rich. Or is it Rich, also known as Quiet Storm? Which one?
is Rich, also known as Quiet Storm.
Kind of get that confused sometime. Hello, everybody. Instagrammers, YouTubers.
And my diva, Dr. Love, is running behind schedule. But tonight we have a great show planned for you. We're going to have Jill Franquelli, who is the editor and publisher of Mary Jane Magazine. She also has a nonprofit organization called Simple Sacrifice. That organization feeds the homeless population in Baltimore City every week. She's co-founder of Mary Jane Community of Baltimore. So we're going to, anything that you're interested in learning about cannabis, CBD, hemp, all of that, you're going to learn that tonight. Please feel free to call us at 855-493-6499 to be a part of the discussion. Our guest will probably be joining us about 7:30 or so, but in the meantime, I have Quiet Storm back. He's been on a 2-week hiatus, so it's good to have him back.
Was there a pun intended with that hiatus?
Oh, pretty clever.
Yeah, I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
So it's good to have him back.
Good to be
back. We have
back.
definitely missed him. So how was your trip?
Had a great time. Spent some time out on the West Coast. It's been a while since I've been out there. Over 20 years. And visited some family and friends. Had a great time. My daughter, she competitively dances. So we kind of did a vacation around some of her auditions she had with some talent scouts. And she had a great time. She saw some celebs and some of those things, some of those people. So had a great time. It's I didn't realize how live and the energy that Cali have. I always kind of took it for granted. But let me tell you, when they say rush hour, gridlock, I mean, you go the wrong time of day, it's a wrap just to get them from one side to the other.
Wow.
But I saw a lot of things. I saw, as far as some of the landmarks, I saw some mansions. I visited Skid Row. You ever heard of that?
I heard of it.
Oh my gosh, I was really, for it to be a place on the map, on your Google map, where it's, I thought it was like some old neighborhood. Some gentrified neighborhood. No, they got, for miles, they had tents.
Wow.
And rumor has it that a lot of cities, and I don't know how much true this is, so don't quote me on this, some cities across the nation actually put their homeless people in a bus and send them to L.A.
Are you serious?
Because, let's say, Chicago, cold weather, they send them to L.A. where, you can live on the street, hardly rains, and they had these tents, like, just sitting in the middle of for like several blocks, and
oh wow, that's amazing.
And people go down there just to see this. Like it's a tourist attraction. I couldn't.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's acceptable,
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's and it's right next to the fashion district where the ladies went shopping all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I said, had a great time.
That's good. I could tell. I mean, I looked at a lot of your pictures that you posted, and it just seems like it was probably the time of your life.
Yeah.
Oh, is that our first caller?
Yeah, I actually visited San Diego, and saw a lot of the coast. So yeah, it was really nice. And you're about to go out there soon, right?
I'm going September 25th through the 28th. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
And to be able, like, I'm staying at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, which I hear a lot of interesting people have stayed there over time.
Yes. Historical landmark, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
It's right underneath going towards the Hollywood Bowl. It's on the Sunset Strip.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's going to be exciting, and to be a part of a VIP movie premiere, that's also going to be awesome. And then I'm receiving an award, so I'm just looking forward to taking it on.
What's the award for? You're just going to I just happen to go
I can't just
fly
throw that out there.
fly 3,000 miles just to receive an award. Yeah, I'm getting an award. What you doing? Come on, girl. What are we doing? What are we getting?
I'm getting a Thought Leader Award.
Thought Leader.
Thought
Okay.
Leader, they call it. It's probably the equivalent to the SB. They call it the XB.
Okay.
So that's exciting to even be considered for that. I don't know what. I think for me, when I first found out that I was going to be receiving it, I was like, me?
Yeah.
Because of the people that I'm in alignment with. There's people from all over the world that will be flying in to participate, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Thank you so much, Pablo. And no, I haven't been to Puerto Rico, but that's on my bucket list as well. Does that mean you're going to be my tour guide? So that, that's next month. Everything is already confirmed, so I'm excited about that. But it's so funny because when you sit back and you think of all the things you do, I think that you don't do it for the awards. It's something that you're passionate about, and if you get recognized for it, that's even better.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. And to think, over time, when I started talking about intimacy, and a few people was like, is that all your show is about? Because they just equate the intimacy to sex. And I'm like, if that's what you think it's about, then you haven't really, really watched a show.
True.
You know, and if you equate intimacy to just sex, then you're missing so much more. You're missing the beauty of it because it's bigger than just the physical.
Yeah, intimacy precedes sex. You could be intimate for hours at a time just with the anticipation of sex, which adds to the build-up. And not only that, you could have platonic intimacy as well.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think I love the fact that you are able to kind of set that straight and correct people's mindsets when it comes to what intimacy really is.
Right. I want people to understand the beauty of intimacy, because I think when you just see it as physical, I feel like you're not able to...
You're missing the journey.
Yeah, exactly. I think that a lot of times it's something simple as holding hands with your partner. That's a shared intimate moment that means a lot. I know for me, I love holding hands. It's like a big deal for me.
See, for you, but if you offer me the last chicken wing,
That's intimate.
That's love right there.
Let me see what Pablo says. The intimacy is more expansive than physical.
Absolutely.
I completely agree, and I do believe that passion is the key too, because you can be in a physical, have a intimate physical moment, but if there's no passion in that moment, it's just plain sex. It's nothing.
And also Pablo says 15 years happily married, congrats, with his wife, and every detail is important. And he's absolutely right with that, because sometimes you forget, you take people for granted, especially when you're in a long-term relationship, you kind of forget what bonded you guys together. And,
I agree.
And once you're conscious of that, it's a good opportunity for you to go back and do some of those things that what made you fall in love in the first place. And intimacy is a big part of that.
It's a big part of that. Pablo, I have a question for you. So you've been married 15 years. What's your secret? So,
and don't say she been married 15 years and you've been married 5 years.
Because that's a long time in a world where marriages aren't lasting for a very long time.
True.
I can say that I've been in my marriage for 27. Said honesty is the secret. But I think a lot of times people aren't willing to stick it out. I think that sometimes when we get married, we don't know what we want out of the relationship. Sometimes we don't even have an idea what marriage is about. And some of that is because we're not having those discussions. It's more than just having that person that you lay next to you every night for jumping up and down. So.
I'm sorry. Pablo, I got to call you out on that. You said the secret to a happy marriage is honesty at all times.
In his marriage.
I'm talking about those questions where does this dress make me look fat?
Well, if it makes me look fat, I want you to be honest and say, hell yes, it makes you look fat.
Or if I say, Aaron Misa, he says, honesty is very important. If you don't have honesty, you don't have trust. I get that. I'm talking about, but like sometimes,
Are you saying you're going to have to tell a little lie just to keep the peace?
Honey, how does haircut look?
Pablo said not that. So are you saying not that?
How does this food taste? How does this new recipe taste?
Well, I like it, but if you could have just added something else.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think it's good for your first time, but if you could have just maybe seasoned it a little, maybe cooked it a little longer.
Look, he said, if you say that, rest in peace.
Yeah, I think you're right, Pablo.
So I would say honesty and timing. And knowing when to say.
I think presentation, because, I think it's the way that you present something. Like if I cook something and it wasn't the greatest, this was good, but, if you could have added some salt or something. I think it's the way that you say it. If you say, this shit was terrible, I'm going to have an attitude. I'm going to have an instant attitude. So
it's the way you say it. So
it's the way,
So how about this? Honey, your food was great. Mm-hmm. It would be great on Fear Factor.
And that's an ass kicking about to take place.
You see the food they remember Fear Factor?
Yeah, because you're saying Fear Factor, like, okay, it's made the cut. It wasn't worthy of putting it on the kitchen table, but it did make it to Fear Factor.
But you know what? I think honesty is good. Mm-hmm. Respect means a lot as well.
Definitely.
Is key. And you have to know what the spirit is. It's. Sometimes it is situations where you want to hear what you want to hear, but just understanding what the spirit is, and part of that is knowing your partner too. All jokes aside.
I agree. Yeah. Sometimes I think as women, we might ask a question waiting for that answer to kind of like be in your face. Like, Let me see how he answers this.
I know exactly when I'm being asked a question where
Right,
you don't
exactly.
really want my opinion. You want validation
You want
to go
validation,
forward with
yeah.
something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that.
Like, I'm thinking about having a party tomorrow and having a whole bunch of people over. You already invited people, and you're just telling me now.
We're just letting you know what we were thinking about.
So
Whether you're on board with it or not.
So I
this
could
is
think
what's
it's my
going
idea.
down.
Yep.
Oh, that's beautiful. He said that his wife was his best friend before she was his wife. So for more than 20 years. That's excellent. I think that plays a big part in the relationship working too.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think, like, I know of a couple that got married and they were best friends for 20 plus years, and once they got married, they were filing for divorce 2 years later. And I think one of the issues was with them, I think she had a hard time transitioning from best friend to wife. And I think it began to be complicated. Yeah, so...
My humble opinion, I think best friends are overrated. Sometimes you have a chemistry. Sometimes you have a connection with somebody. But I think what people misunderstand, especially with long-term relationships, is the growth. Because, I got married 20 years ago. I'm not the same person I am 20. I'm not the same person 10 years ago. So if you could able to grow together and still... and be along the same path and not grow apart, that makes a big difference too.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does.
Yeah.
So joining us in the studio tonight is our lovely guest, Jill Franquelli. It's Jillian Franquelli. Okay.
Perfect.
Jill.
All right. So
Hi,
I'm so
Jill.
excited to
Hi,
have you
thanks
here.
for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So,
And we also
our
have-
diva has joined us. Dr. Love is the diva of the show.
Oh, I love that.
Hi, Jill.
Hey. From one diva to the other.
Okay.
No.
Dressing alike and everything.
100%.
Y'all are
Man.
kind of coordinated. Yeah.
But, yes,
See?
exactly. Come closer. Come closer, yeah.
Coordinated.
Look at the matching.
All right.
She called me, I called her. Maroon.
Okay.
Maroon, we doing maroon?
Yeah, he had to
Okay.
change his shirt
Blue,
because Jillian told him
Blue.
what color she was putting on.
Blue.
Blue.
That's right.
And our DJ, meatball color? Meatball
Y'all
color?
see,
The color of ground
wait a
beef?
minute.
He's dealing with
working
some
on
technical-
stuff. He's
yeah.
doing some technical things.
Yeah, he's
over
doing
there.
some technical.
And it's my fault because I forgot to introduce the man in charge. So, Big Nick, you want to give a shout out? No,
He waves from off
Okay.
camera. We'll.
All right. So who do I have? And I'm trying not to mess up the names. TK Imran. Greetings from Ghana.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. We are international.
And
Okay.
Amazing.
Pablo's
Yes.
Puerto Rico.
Pablo is Puerto Rico. Pablo,
France.
are you going to be our guide when we come to Puerto Rico? I like to take my show to Puerto Rico. Pablo has a show too, by the way.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually. Hopefully, he'll have me on soon.
That'll be a great trip.
Oh yeah. So, Jill,
Yeah.
thank you for coming and joining us. So, tell us about yourself. I got to show folks.
Hello. Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Jill Franquelli, and I have a soon-to-be magazine in the cannabis industry called Mary Jane. Actually had one before, but we're just rebranding and relaunching.
Okay.
Yeah, so we talk all about patient stories, people who are using cannabis to heal their ailments, whether physical or mental, and really helping end the stigma by showing people that everybody uses cannabis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what led you to the cannabis community?
Yeah, I think the universe
Okay,
did
I love that.
first and foremost. But my wife has another magazine in another industry, and someone knew about that magazine, and so he approached me about it, and we kind of built this platform called Mary Jane in Maryland, and really that was it. I've always been a storyteller, and I think I would have never thought the cannabis community if it wasn't for that one meeting. And man, I'm
Okay.
so thankful for it because I love it more than anything. Like, it's a great community to be a part of. But what I've learned most is the power of storytelling
Okay.
and
That's
and
pretty
how
awesome.
we we learn when we tell our stories.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. So what are the exciting changes in the cannabis community right now?
Oh, I mean, it's even hard for me to keep up with what's going on. I think everyone it's moving so quickly, right? So I think in the cannabis industry, there's a lot of movements that need to happen, and a lot of all have a priority, and all of them are number one priorities, but they all kind of compete at the same time. So if we're really focused on one thing, it may be pulling from another thing.
Okay.
And so I think that's it. We're trying to find out what's the platform to get this movement across the United States to make sure people have safe access to cannabis, right? I think that's huge.
Right.
We're dealing with a population of individuals who are using this as medicine. And so we want to make sure that it's not hurting, but it's helping them. I think that's always it. I think the cost of cannabis is extremely high for a lot of people, right? And so, man, if you're doing like a cancer treatment of RSO, that could be thousands of dollars. And you're already kind of tapped out at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think, even just being able to study it like all other medicines, to be able to show people what it is that's happening.
Yeah.
And so since this is taking so long, that's where stories come into play. We're all learning from one another.
Okay.
When we share, well, I have this and this is what I do, it's kind of an informal study that takes place, and we can share that knowledge. Yeah, and I think just the excitement of being able to consume cannabis with someone else without the fear of something happening, that's huge.
That is huge.
That's still the biggest thing for me. I'm excited every time I go to an event. I don't know if it will ever get old for me to stand in a group of people and be smoking a blunt in a venue, and I'm just like, why am I not in the parking lot with my brother?
Isn't that one of the side effects, paranoia?
Exactly. Well, when
the munchies. Hey man, you got a bag of chips on you? I'm hungry as fuck right now.
But you mentioned the movement, and I do agree. I see this. I don't want to say thing. This movement moving really fast.
Yeah.
But of course, there's for it to be legit or for it to be mainstream. I don't want to say legit. There's a regulatory aspect of it.
Yeah.
So do you find the movement is the movement is moving faster than the regulatory aspect, or the regulatory aspect is holding it back?
Oh man, that's like the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Because I think you could. I mean, to do it correctly, it takes thought leaders. It takes people who have used cannabis before, who continue to use it, who are kind of in the culture. I think it may be head and head. I think maybe policy is not able to keep up with demand sometimes and the changes that need to take place. So I think a big issue is recycling right now. Man, the amount of product that's coming out.
Wow.
Because you're buying an 8th container. Think about that. Like 8 of those. Most people have a 4-ounce limit. Most of those are not recyclable.
Okay.
So, I think they're trying to figure this out, because then you have this, weed was in that jar, so we have to dispose of it. And no, you don't. It's plant material. Like, there needs to be some faster ways to make sure we're not hurting things along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
And what would you say what would you say the most healthiest way to ingest it? Like, for instance, of course you could smoke it, but I assume that cannabis does have some levels of tar, which is bad for your lungs, right?
No,
No,
there's no tar. I mean, I think I'm not on nicotine. Like, tar is not something that comes from. I think probably the healthiest way. If you have a healthy edible that's not just filled with sugar.
Right.
But the absorption rate is slower.
It is. I don't personally, edibles don't really mix with me well, because it never hits me at the right time, and sometimes it can be way too long after.
Exactly.
So I find where I have used edibles is in extreme pain. So like, I had knee surgery. It didn't matter when it hit me. I just needed pain relief. And so, but I think if you're thinking of like what it does to your body, maybe that's the least damaging. Overall, though, everything's pointing to it. It's still the least harmful from everything that you could be doing. But there's vaporizers. There's actually vaporizers for flour, so you don't have to roll it up in a joint or a blunt.
Right.
There's non-tobacco versions of blunts to make sure that you're not getting tobacco with it as well. What it depends on, though, is what you're treating and what your body's like.
True.
And so if you're someone who is, and this is just, for this person, if you're someone who's dealing with a lot of pain, you doing maybe a little vaporizing pen may not be strong enough for what you need. Or if you're having a panic attack, that may. So some people, and most people, I think, use all methods, depending on whatever it is they're trying to accomplish.
How far are we from injectable cannabis?
Oh.
Like EpiPens, like...
Like I need.
I mean, they have inhalers coming, so why wouldn't that be? Although I would think, I don't know, it's such a chill thing.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd be so anxious about to EpiPen myself, but maybe. If studies are done to find out, like if you're in the middle of a seizure, maybe an EpiPen's the best way to get the cannabinoids to you to stop this seizure, instead of, if you've ever watched the videos, they're trying to like get it in their mouth and get the oil kind of in their gums so that it can get in their bloodstream. That may be someone is about to make $1 million right there.
Just right, but that was a
next
good
time,
point.
Next time you're in a room full of like-minded people, just put that in there.
Yeah.
And I'll just 10% for me. Just slide it my way.
Well,
you can make $1 million.
Even more. That's. Totally
I think that was when you used the seizures. I think I found out about cannabis because the plant, I believe in D.C., started treating children. Yeah, with epilepsy. But when I was diagnosed at 4, that wasn't available at that time. So, because I'm 53 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So things.
Do you remember
like
what medicine? Like you were...
back then it was Dilantin, which they still use now, phenobarbital, which those two were the leading medications at that time. And believe it or not, I was allergic to both.
Oh, that's not good.
It sucked.
Yeah.
Because I was in the hospital a lot because they had to find something to stabilize me. And at a young age, I was given Valium. Yeah. But they were still learning about epilepsy. So I just imagine at that time not having the cannabis, for one, because I've read like some of the stories and the success rate with it. Like this organization, I can't remember the name of it, but they actually started getting government funding because of the great work that they've done with kids. So fast forward to today, cannabis has so many different, uses for it. Like when D-Rock was here, I think he gave Nick this ointment to rub on his hip. So Nick, how was that for you? You got the headphones on? How was the ointment that D-Rock gave you?
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I'm sorry.
Okay. So, I mean,
I
it's
thought he
like
was having a
come such a
flashback.
long
How was that
way.
ointment?
Yeah. Well, he kept saying it was so funny because I think at some point he didn't really feel anything. Yeah. So I was amazed by that.
I think, everyone's feeling when they use either CBD or full cannabis is a little bit different. And sometimes it's what you don't feel that is the best way to describe it, right? So I use cannabis for anxiety. I don't feel that psychoactive, even though I've used THC. I just don't feel that heaviness in my chest anymore. I don't feel that anxiousness. I just feel like Jill again.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty.
Now, you mentioned THC. So THC is, and help me understand, THC is the active ingredient that causes the high sensation.
Yeah.
And then there's CHB, which is more so geared towards the medicinal, right? Am I?
CBD.
I mean, CBD.
So they're both cannabinoids.
All right.
One, they work better together than separately. CBD is absorbed a little bit better into your receptors if you have a little THC kind of greasing the wheels with it. What it is, I think, when you see, because there's not that psychoactive effect with CBD, it's an easier pill to swallow.
Right.
For people who think THC is addictive or they think that their kids are going to be high. And even my father, who has 2 children who are very heavily involved in and use cannabis daily.
Okay.
He still will only take CBD, and it is like he believes it works for me.
So excuse my ignorance, how do you separate? How do you
I
extract?
think the scientists get together
okay,
I think so. Hemp, like what D-Rock has,
Yeah.
that's just a plant unto itself, right? And so
Right.
they're like sisters. Hemp, the THC level, it's still in there. It's just low. So if you were to smoke a bunch of hemp flower, you will fail a THC drug test.
Interesting.
Right? So that's like something people need to understand. With
But you
full
won't get the
spectrum.
sensation.
You won't. Because also CBD kind of counteracts the high that you get from THC. So let's just say you over-medicate one day, you're feeling a little anxious. What you would want to do is take CBD, and that would help reverse it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So CBD, I think, in my opinion, has all the same benefits as THC does, minus those psychoactive ones. When, for me, those are the ones that help with depression, that helps with pain more. I know it absorbs in your body better when you have THC presence, but I think it's like a good starter for people to understand how this little plant works.
Interesting.
Can they be put in brownies?
CBD can be put anywhere, and I will
Yes.
tell you, while THC edibles don't work for me well, CBD ones do very well.
Wow.
Because I think you don't have that psychoactive reaction that's going to
Right,
come at
right.
some point. So you just get the benefits of what CBD is.
Okay, so I have to read this comment.
Yeah.
TK says, from his study in Africa, it seems a lot of children abuse it. Do
Yeah.
you think that?
I mean, here's this. I'm going to go just 30 seconds, like really deep.
Okay.
Most people abuse something in their life.
True.
Right? So before, like I would say I'm like a huge sugar addict before I lost weight. People do that because they're self-soothing from
Right.
whatever trauma. I mean, just becoming an adult is traumatic enough.
Definitely.
So if you think about what people are going through, is it no wonder that they go and they find these things? And if I were to find something like I did at 33 as great as cannabis, I would, and I do, use it daily instead of other things.
Okay.
You know? And so for my anxiety, I don't have to take pills. But I do believe, like, kids, there's not a lot of studies that's been done on how it affects it. So is it my favorite thing to see kids, like, walking around smoking joints?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Right.
However, kids are drinking alcohol. They're doing a whole hell of a lot of other things that are killing them.
Yeah.
And nobody has died from THC. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to, like, be that parent that's like, I'd rather you consume at my house,
Right.
I kind of feel that way about
Yeah.
it. Although it's not legal in Maryland to do that. So,
and
where I
that's
stand on that.
right. It's so funny that you say that because the community is growing faster than the legislation for it. So, do you think the representatives know enough about cannabis to actually push the agenda?
No.
Okay.
No, I think it is so stigmatized across everywhere. You have people who just don't even know. They don't even understand, and that's why it's important to talk about it and to share the stories, because where someone's mind gets changed is when they see, I had a friend who used cannabis while they had cancer, and this is how it helped them. And all of a sudden, they start to realize this isn't some big, bad, evil thing because
Right.
my next door neighbor used that. And so that has to continue to happen. And the unfortunate part is the people who do make the laws aren't using
They
guess
don't-
what?
right, so
The
they don't know
federal
the
and
benefits.
state
Nothing-
employees,
guess
and
it's
they
not
can't.
enough
Right.
advocates, right?
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
yeah, and that because, I mean, it's just such a political world. I don't even know where to begin with it. I think,
Yeah.
people are picking and choosing how they want to position themselves with certain topics to get elected versus not get elected. I mean, if you go to different counties, I mean, Baltimore City, we're not prosecuting anyone anymore for it, but you go other places and they will in the state. So,
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
my
I think-
son just experienced that a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
He got pulled over, and I don't know how much he had on him, but he was educating his public defender on how much he could carry per patient.
yep.
So they went to court, and they found that out, and his public defender was like, So you can carry, I don't know what the number was, but you can carry how much per patient? Well, clearly I'm in the wrong industry.
Yeah. I mean, the hard part is like even law enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very scary for everyone to drive home from a dispensary. I think it's even
Yeah, that's
scarier
true.
for people of color to drive home from a dispensary.
Absolutely.
Because you have law enforcement who does not understand what this is.
Right.
And so, yeah, harassment starts to happen. And
Absolutely.
so you have to know, especially if you're a medical patient, you have to understand the laws.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure you have your medical card with you.
Right.
I always carry that, right? Like, most of the time, if you show that, it's not worth the hassle, I think.
Yeah.
For them
that's
to be
true.
like, oh, okay, that's it. And I've even been pulled over, and the situations have been completely different both times and what
Okay.
level of knowledge they knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a good idea for them because at some point it will become legal in Maryland.
Yeah.
So I think when they're going through their training, that should be a mandatory part of their
Oh,
training
yeah.
too. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
thought it was legal in Maryland.
No,
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 just
no,
medically.
no.
Maryland.
Medically.
but like
Legal in
adult
other
consumption.
states,
Yeah. So
and they
anybody can go.
legalize it like that.
Yeah.
When it comes to Maryland, it's like,
So there's in other states it's legal medically and what is
Recreationally or
recreational.
adult consumption.
but Maryland has said that if it's a certain amount, the district attorney ain't gonna touch it.
Oh yeah. I
So
mean,
if you got
even-
caught with like a
Baltimore-
nickel
Baltimore
bag,
City. Baltimore
that's
City.
not enough to send you to jail. I
Yeah.
mean, so at least they kind of like moving
yeah, I
a
don't
little
think they care as
forward.
much.
Snail pace,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
a little slow pace.
And the reason and that's all because they can't control it. It's in the state wants to regulate it because the same thing with alcohol. At one point, alcohol was illegal, and then when they were able to put that government seal on the top of those
Exactly.
on the top of those bottles, every time you crack some alcohol, it's a state seal that you're cracking. So, what's gonna if they find a way, and this is just my humble opinion, if they find a way to regulate it, it would pass quicker because
Oh, yeah.
it would keep people from if they could keep people from growing it on their own.
Or sneaking to do it.
Or growing it in their backyard because
Well,
if it's
that's what
worth
they're
money,
doing now. I
yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
And the impact of it becoming legal in all states would have a significant impact on the pharmaceutical industry.
And that was exactly what I was going to mention.
Yeah.
Even more so than regulation, they've once minds are opened and they realize, like, and I'm not saying cannabis works for everyone,
Right.
because people are sensitive to those cannabinoids and terpenes that cause issues. Sometimes you need medicine, right?
Yeah.
It's and it should be with it.
Right.
It should be like a first line of a defense. But once people realize that, you do, and they realize pharmaceuticals start to go down.
Right.
Man, is that not a cash cow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Oh.
has been.
I've always been a fan, well, not a fan, but an advocate of legalizing because I grew up in a culture from being in the 70s, 80s, and child of the 90s in a West Indian culture. So it was, of course, that's in the forefront of the culture, but it was a crime aspect as well. So when you legalize it, it takes away the criminal aspect.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And
And
they
then-
got to
and
let
the
a lot
violence.
of people out of jail.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And rightfully so. That should be, like, number one that's done.
I agree.
And I think it's just, man, such an unwinding of a problem that has been created with the war on drugs. That's
Yeah.
really been very unnecessary. And I'm not even an expert on it. I just know enough that, man, it really messed a lot of things up.
Yeah.
Well, let me pick your brain. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on well, let me see. One of the happiest places on earth where people want to live is the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the main thing with them? They
can do what you
legalize.
want.
You can do what you want.
They legalize all forms of drugs, from opiates
Mm-hmm.
to cannabis. No crime, because the criminal aspect is
Sex workers are legal there.
Yeah.
Right? So all of those things that are taboo
Right.
are legal there
wow.
and regulated.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
See y'all
You
later.
better start
Road
saving
trip.
your money, man.
See y'all later.
yeah.
It takes, like, the danger out of it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It does.
And,
Yeah, it
and
does.
all
People
of
are
those
going to do it.
Right.
exactly. And the point is, it's state is regulated, and the criminal aspects of all of these underground type of activities, which were perceived as underground, with on our ends of the lake, is legal. So there's no crime. I mean, there's the criminal aspect is down, and it's like my issue is, well, not my issue, but I think it's hard to govern morality.
Yeah,
but that's what I find. That's what I find that with alcohol, with drugs, you're governing morality at that point. And if that's what you may be addicted, or it might be a situation where it's a bad situation, but it's still someone's choice. And I think if we dealt with it that way, it would be a different narrative.
But I think everything that's taboo, they want to control it because they don't understand it. And then I feel like, okay, our morality is being governed, but what about the people in charge morality? Who's governing theirs? So
well, they go to church.
Again, who's governing their morality? You know what I'm saying? It's like, to me, I feel like it's contradictive in a sense. You want to regulate how we do certain things, but you're not leading by example. And we put these people in office, and I feel like so many of them have fallen short on the morality aspect.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just it, right? Like, if we just treated everybody how they preferred to be treated, instead of the golden rule, the platinum rule, like do unto others as they would want done unto them.
Right.
That would change a lot of things. And morality, like, I think the definition of it has changed so much to be this one way of life. I do these things, and anything outside of that norm is considered not moral.
It's not right, and you're judged on it when you don't fit in with what people perceive you to be. Then it's like you're blackballed for whatever reason. You're judged because of a lifestyle that might make somebody else uncomfortable instead of live and let live. I feel like we've gotten so far away from that.
Yeah, we haven't let anybody live.
No,
like, we're all up in each other's business.
Exactly.
Well, these are really good topics. So tell us about your magazine. What kind of subjects or what kind of subject matter you guys talk about in your magazine?
Yeah, so basically it's all Maryland-based cannabis patients. And so we go in and we learn their story. We learn about their condition. We learn their hero's journey. And we learn how cannabis has, for a lot of people, saved their lives. And so it's a great concept when you think about it just as a business plan. But what was really cool was after the first issue that was put out, I realized very quickly, this is how we end stigma. This is how, and actually this can be applied everywhere. So, a lot of the people who are sick in this world are not believed. They're stigmatized just as well.
Right.
I grew up with a mom who was very ill, and so I understand that because I did those things to her being sick. So what we do is we have a writer who takes their story and makes it beautiful. And it's done from a perspective of an artist writing their story instead of being told in the first person.
Okay.
And then we take beautiful pictures of them and we put it in this magazine. And for whatever reason, that one thing does something for the person who is featured, but then it has a ripple effect. So this person, for the first time, hopefully not, was legitimized in the struggle that they've gone through from a patient perspective. A lot of people who are sick, it's very hard to get the help that they need, especially chronically ill.
Yeah.
The cost of medicine, doctors who don't do what they say they're going to do, or don't believe them, or think they're exaggerating.
Yeah.
And so for us to take every word that they said and then turn it into something that a reader then, so we have 4 things we want a reader to do. We want them to laugh, we want them to cry, we want them to think, and then we want them to act. the people we want them to read this magazine aren't people who use cannabis, because our mind's made up. Like, we are in.
Right.
Well, those 4 things are hard to do sober. You know that, right?
That is true. That's why we use cannabis.
Right. To level the
My
playing
best
field.
thinking is done on some Jack Herrera.
Like, you want me to write this story sober? Or you want me to write this story
Great.
high? I do my best work when I'm high.
I mean, I think there's something to be said with unlocking a creative part of your brain. But with the main audience is we want someone whose mind isn't made up.
Right.
Who then looks at this and doesn't go, oh, this is a stoner magazine. And it has drippy fonts, and you see, Willie Nelson on the front, or a rapper, or something like that. What you see is a mom.
Yeah.
You see a daughter. You see a soldier who has PTSD. And then, because it's all Maryland-based, people know these people, and you run into them. And it creates this moment for everybody, right? That story, I had that emotion. And then there's knowledge behind it. So there's no place for anyone really to go like, I have PTSD, so what's working for everyone who has PTSD? There's like, I don't know how many strains there are out there, and just the work it takes to find your medicine. It's not like a doctor giving you a prescription. You've got to figure this out and put the work in. And so we are hopefully documenting a history of what happened in Maryland in cannabis. And someone reads that and they go, my child has autism. That's the first issue of Mary Jane, is going to be kids and cannabis. It's actually been postponed slightly just because of some legal things.
Yeah, it's controversial, isn't it?
It is very controversial.
What are some of the roadblocks, or what some of your detractors would say?
Yeah, it's parents. There's no safety net, really, for parents who use cannabis for their kids. If someone got a bee in their bonnet to call Child Protective Services.
Wow.
Okay.
Right? And so, not that those cases don't work out, but man, you could effectively ruin someone's life with that. And so we are making sure with our stories that we have, especially this kids and cannabis. Adults, it's so easy.
Right.
But with these kids, they're under 18, and also their parents. And I think it would be so far-fetched that this happened, but I would never want a kid to not be with his family, because the children who are medicated have autism, and you could see how someone could say, like, oh, you're just drugging your kid.
Yeah.
Where I've seen firsthand a child who is in rage, like harming themselves to the point where the parents, what do you do with that? Like, all they're doing is throwing meds at them. And then they give the little kid a little RSO gummy bear. And 20 minutes later, he's calm.
Wow.
And he stopped doing that. We know that the general public, that's still very controversial. And so we're just really making sure that it's done right, because I want to do this right. It's not effective if it has a negative outcome.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, as far as your magazine is concerned, not saying that if you didn't title it "We," that people wouldn't read it.
Correct.
They're going, especially if you put like
Weed the people.
3D,
That's what our
3D animals in there that you got to say must read while high, and the puzzles that look like it's blind to the eye, but once you get high, it forms into an animal or something like. See, that's the
I
shit
think you
right
and I
there.
are going to collab on some art projects.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? But you know what though? One thing that I've
Nate's
noticed.
going to be in charge of the kids page.
Yeah.
At
Oh
the
my
end
God,
of
that would
the-
actually be really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling
Yeah.
you. So, well, one thing I've noticed is that when you have someone that can't, that is not a part of something that you're doing good, that they haven't thought of it, that they're self, or that they ain't got some form of a compensation in it, those are the people that come against you.
Yeah.
The people who are for it and understand it, like he was talking about the child that can go crazy, but if you give him a gummy bear, he quiet. That's not something that just happens.
Yeah.
And if people will understand that we're not drugging the children, but we're giving them another alternative, because most children are visuals. They see something like Flintstone vitamins. If it looks like candy, they'll eat it. They don't know that that's a vitamin. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So if you give them something like a gummy bear to quiet down, like if a child had ADHD, you know what I'm saying? They don't know that that's helping them for the ADHD. They just see a piece of gummy bear.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you know, all depending on how the parents do it, they may say, well, listen, you know, if you good, you know, you may get another gummy bear before, you know, sleep. In a child's mind, they're eager because they see a piece of candy.
Yeah.
But in the parent's mind, they're helping that child to just maintain calmness. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, like a lot of children experience ADHD. They really hyper. And the first thing the doctors want to do is throw drugs on them. Pills or whatever. But now it's like you have the alternative of the cannabis
Yeah.
that will mellow a child out for 7 to 8 hours.
Isn't it funny that they think cannabis is drugging, but they don't see
But they
giving
don't
a
see the
kid
Ritalin
a
and
pill is
stuff
drugging?
like that.
Like,
Yeah.
it's such a...
Because it's
So
coming
weird
from
to
a
me.
doctor, that's
Well,
why.
Yeah,
that's
that's
how they
true.
look at it. It's
Well-
coming from a
That is true.
doctor,
Well,
and
name
that
one.
makes it okay.
Name one medicine that's not plant based anyway. Everything comes from plants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything. So everything has a plant derivative. So you extract the active ingredients and you put it in a pill form. That's it's not rocket science. It's just what we pick and choose to. I still think it comes down to regulation.
Oh, yeah.
If they can
They gotta make
control
their
it,
money.
They gotta,
if they
yeah,
can control
exactly.
it,
That is what...
Well, in the
what
words
it
of Smokey, weed is from the earth.
Exactly. I mean, how can you regulate something that grows?
Yeah.
That, you know, say that people can't use it and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know
And
what?
it's only
They'd
because
have
they
been.
can't benefit from it. They can, but they want the bigger benefit of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The big pocket change.
Big pocket change.
Because
exactly.
every-
Big pocket change.
everybody's backyard, everybody's front yard, you know, would have weed in it. It wouldn't
Oh,
be growing
the second
grass.
home grow?
Or
Come to
growing
my
it in that
house.
basement.
Yeah.
That is the new plantscape
the
in
new-
my house.
Growing it-
Yeah.
You know?
When's the next party at your house?
Only when it's home grow. But we do throw events. Like, that is
Okay.
one of the things where, you know, I'm hoping legislation catches up even more to provide even more spaces. But something that, you know, makes cannabis work better is to consume it in a group.
Yeah.
You know, there's something about that bonding that
Right.
happens. And so events, I mean, we threw the first 420 friendly event in Maryland, and what a moment that was to have people where we advertised that we were going to be consuming cannabis.
Right.
And to have that was such a cool experience, and, you know, the bond that you meet when you're meeting people all across the state. And I think that's what is so powerful is cannabis brings people together, people who would never be together.
That's true. You connect on a different level
Mm-hmm.
and probably build
You're right.
lifelong friendships.
Oh, we're cool.
I got it.
I don't care
Business
what you like.
partnerships,
If
yeah.
we smoke a blunt,
Yeah.
we're friends. Like,
But
that's
you know,
pretty much it.
You know what? As I was driving over here from work, I had a revelation. So I'm thinking, I thought about,
Before the
you know,
cannabis?
well,
Maybe after.
yeah, that's an elevation, right? So I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about your line of business. So this is the Intimacy Chronicles. So I thought about, okay, I've dated, you know, women who were into that lifestyle, the cannabis lifestyle, weed. I've dated alcoholics,
Closet alcoholics.
weekend alcoholics who would, you know.
Love their wine.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
But when an alcohol, and I'm not, I dated women, so I have to speak from a man's perspective, okay? So when a woman's drunk, they want to fight. They're cursing you out. They're telling you what's on your mind, and it's not a good thing. But the weed person, she was always mellow and
Okay.
you know, and forgiving, and it was like,
you like
But you still got to watch that one, too.
no, it's a different no, I'm telling
Ain't
you.
that right, Nick?
Yeah.
You
It was-
still got to watch that one, too.
But I'm just saying, you know, when I had an issue, okay, both of them are high, okay, drunk high and a weed high. I want to deal with the weed high.
Oh,
I don't
all
want to
day
deal with the
long.
woman.
Difference.
Yeah,
It's definitely
a
big
drunk
difference.
high is violent. You end up in jail. You acting. You don't have.
No, I don't know.
I'm just saying.
I don't know. Because the weed high is stay sleep. So if you want some, that means you got to wake them up, or it'll appear to be rape. The drunk guy is like, do you know who I am? Yes, I know who you are. You gonna give me some? Now it ain't rape.
See, but my point is, there's a belligerent high and there's a calm high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's my point. It's like, I was thinking about that. I was like, well, damn. This is illegal and this is legal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been times where, it's like when someone's drunk, versus when somebody's high off of cannabis, it's completely different vibe.
It's different.
Oh yeah.
And which one would you rather deal with?
I'd rather deal with the weed person
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not a great drinker, and
Okay.
so it makes me feel bad. It makes me I'm not the girl fighting. I'm the one that can't stand up. That's like Bambi walking around. Like, somebody save me. Yeah.
When I saw her started with like 2 cups of wine or something like that. Let me tell you something. I was like, oh Lord.
Something about yourself.
Right.
When you started the joint, it was like, okay, this is gonna be a nice night.
Okay.
I mean, I find your conversation
it's different.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
yes.
talking about bigger things.
Yeah,
Your
definitely.
your mind. And sometimes you totally go to sleep for sure. But
Well, you think about thoughtful questions like, are vegetarians allowed to eat animal crackers?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it called a parkway when you drive
Right,
on
you
it?
start
You
thinking
drive
about
in your
all
car.
kind of crazy
The
stuff.
meaning of you might find the meaning of life smoking weed.
One of my friends said when him and his friends would get together, they would convince themselves after smoking that they could do the most impossible shit. And I'm like what? He said, we would convince ourselves that we could will our minds to walk through a wall. I was like,
You big dummy.
Yeah, we don't do that.
That sounds
But
like
I think
That's
that
stupid
it's
as
like a
sounds
different level of conversation.
Yeah.
I think your mind is more free.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of similar to what alcohol does, right?
alcohol ends up in when they're drunk, like the fight.
Yeah.
I don't
You
get
just get a
that
little
way. I
loose,
mean,
not the fight.
I
Right.
Don't fucking judge me. I want to have sex. That's just me.
Okay.
Well,
Listen, I haven't tried cannabis.
You haven't?
I have not. My son makes the bomb brownies, but I will not. And let me share my story. At 13, I always hung with older people. So I was smoking a joint, had pink champagne. They probably don't even make that now. And I was on a lot of seizure medication, so definitely wasn't a great combination. And I just remember walking into the wrong house, and it was so traumatic for me because the neighbor was yelling and screaming like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And from that point on, I never did it again. Never even had any interest because it just blew my mind. Like I really was on a trip. But I know that things are so different now. So, but I think there's a part of me that's still like afraid to kind of try it.
Because you got to realize there is that aspect of that, because it's like, let's say you eating an edible, it's still, you got the active ingredient, but you got other ingredients that may not mesh with you. That's in it. You don't know what it seems like when anybody's cooking. Because I'm gonna talk about my buddy, Little Drummer Boy. I think a couple years ago, he called me on a Wednesday and he said, "Yeah, I was in the ER last couple nights." I'm like, "Well, you ain't had no idea, right?" So it took him a while to admit the reason he was in it, because he said he wasn't feeling good and blah 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 blah.
Gotcha.
He had an edible. Somebody gave him an edible that didn't agree
Thought
with
he was
him.
gonna die.
And I think
Story
what
of everybody
happened.
with an edible.
And I think what
right.
happened, it didn't kick in right away. So like later on, all of a sudden he could see his heart beating outside of his body and that kind of thing. And,
Oh, wow.
and it was, and he and they were asking him all these questions, but he did not tell the truth.
Because he was afraid.
He did not tell the doctor what
Yeah.
happened. He was just, I'm just feeling
Oh, he
lightheaded.
probably got a lot of tests he didn't need for just brownie. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
makes it very hard with
Yeah.
cannabis is because those terpenes, those cannabinoids are sensitive to everybody's body differently.
Right.
So, you may have people, and I think, the words indica and sativa at some point are going to disappear. But if you're looking at like the upper versus like the one that puts you in the couch,
Right.
some people take that indica and it treats them just like they had a sativa. And so, if you have high anxiety, pinene may cause a panic attack.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of even look at that level, which is why maybe edibles, I think, are the hardest for me to deal with because, man, if that terpene ratio is off and there's
Exactly.
too much pinene,
Right.
that's when the paranoia sets in, and that's when a panic attack
See,
comes.
I would have to
Okay.
make it myself. I couldn't eat somebody,
From
you know,
somebody
and that's the. I was
Yeah.
like, well, what fun is that?
Yeah.
You know, because if everyone feels that way, I'm going to be. No one's going to eat my edibles. You know, did
Well,
that sound?
yeah.
Did that sound right? Nobody's going to eat my edibles.
Oh, that sounds nasty.
Yeah, that sound real nasty.
So,
Boom, 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 boom.
he says he loves hybrids. What are hybrids?
So hybrids is like a good mix between like the sativa and indica, and really most strains are hybrids, right?
Okay.
So it just is a good mix. So hybrid would be like a good daytime strain for the most part, but even they maybe lean a little more to the sativa side or more to the indica side. So yeah, I think like that's for daytime consumption. That's what I use as like a good hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Or he said indica.
Oh yeah.
Indica hybrid mix.
Oh well, yeah. He likes to be a little more chill.
So tell us about your research in Jamaica,
Oh.
because I know you went to Jamaica.
I did go to Jamaica. I love Jamaica. And here's what I have. If I showed you, I don't think I posted my nug shot from Jamaica. It was probably 6 inches and it was long, this one bud, and probably an inch in diameter around, and kind of went up straight and then bent to the side. It was just so bad looking.
We are talking about a plant.
We are talking about.
I
I
got
mean, I will
excited.
tell
Wait a
you.
minute, wait a minute.
Once
I'm
I
up
mean,
there sitting there like,
I forgot where it was.
Right,
I
like,
we talking about the
like
plant.
a straight up
Inches,
penis.
like, okay, with a curve. I like a curve. Oh, but wait a minute.
It went hard to
Yeah.
the left. So, but that's what it looked like. But
Okay.
Listen, when she said 6 inches, I was like,
She
I don't even want to hear
said 6
this.
inches. I felt like that.
Right.
You don't want it.
I was like, I don't want to hear
She said
this.
6 inches and then made a left turn.
Yeah, exactly. When she said that, I was like, I don't want to hear this.
into that.
I knew Jackie eyes would be rolled right.
Yeah, I was like, oh, do
Hey,
tell.
Jill. No, Jill, that was served up like
Yeah,
Okay.
here you go.
And when she said with the curve, I'm like, oh, wait.
Exit state.
She had a moment. Okay, so let's as we digress, let's go.
Thank you.
Oh, you back now?
Set and setting plays a role in cannabis,
Yeah.
right? So you could have the best cannabis in the world that made you feel amazing and be in a horrible situation and not do what it always has done.
Wow.
Okay.
My scientific studies on this is all based in Jamaica. I don't care how bad that cannabis looked and how black it was. That is the best cannabis I've ever had. And I think, why wouldn't it be? Because you're consuming it on a beach and it's beautiful. And so,
Wow.
Interesting.
yeah, whether it is or not, when
Yeah.
people look at the pictures, they're like, you smoke them? Like, yes, everything
Wow.
with it. But yeah, it's very, I like the culture down there.
Is there a
quite bit.
certain type of soil, certain type of weather, sunlight?
I think so. There's a big company that is working in Jamaica that I think is getting ready. They want to be like the first exporters
Yeah.
Okay.
of cannabis. Jamaica is like a great location,
Yeah.
climate-wise. The sun is bright and shiny. It has a history of that. Like
Yeah.
some amazing strains come out of Jamaica.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that a lot of people would argue that there are better places for cannabis. For me, it's Jamaica.
Okay.
I haven't been a lot of other places, but I can't beat it. And that, in my research, was just getting it from a guy on a kayak.
Okay.
But they do have a medical program there.
Mm-hmm.
So you just register before you go, and you can go into dispensary there.
So how long has this medical program have been established? I mean, was this
In Maryland or in Jamaica?
Jamaica?
Oh, I think it's just been recently.
Wow, so they're behind the curve too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all been like under.
Yeah, because they've been, was illegal, but
yeah.
but it was accepted because it's just I mean,
I feel like government's probably involved in that. Like,
Yeah.
because this can't be regulated.
Because
right?
you're right.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
if they were able to, I digress. But
So
interesting.
it
So they're
seems
behind
like,
the curve too. Yeah.
Like Amsterdam, since it's been legal there for a long time, they probably have like I would say probably that's a great place to probably learn and in terms of the legality of it. I feel like they seem to be on the cutting edge of research. Have you been there?
I haven't, and I would love to go. I think, Israel is real. I mean, they're kind of the hub of cannabis
And
research.
Israel is surprising.
Right?
Yeah, it's so
Wait a
surprising.
minute, that's true?
Yeah.
That
I just
that,
recently heard that.
that just
and
ain't
I
on a
was
movie?
like,
Nope.
No.
It is like. Yeah,
Oh
so
my
they
God.
have the
Oh,
ability
really?
to study it in
So,
ways that we
There's a
don't.
movie
Right, yeah.
called
There's only one
Beast
person
Bigelow,
that can study it
European
in the
Gigolo.
States.
Well, he's in the Amsterdam, and
And
he
she
Wow.
has a
this
what,
bread,
oh
this
my goodness,
cake,
what is it called?
and the cake gets you high. I didn't know that. I thought that was just a movie.
No, that's
This
all
is real. That's real.
It's all real. Yeah. Your mind's blown.
Yeah, he's like, he's done for the night,
Oh, my
like, wow.
God.
He wants the cake.
I want some cake now.
I
Did you
mean,
bring
it is-
any edibles for us?
I didn't bring any edibles.
You know, keep them all to yourself, huh?
Yeah.
It'll be a long time before we have you back.
If it was legal to share in Maryland, I would.
Yeah.
Nobody had to know.
No, but well, now you just said it all over the radio.
Yeah,
Now
you
everybody
did,
knows.
man. You blew it. You blew it.
We're talking about
Let's
burritos.
Let's get a picture of this tattoo here. I've been really.
this one?
That's a molecule.
It is.
And which molecule is that?
It is anandamide. So it is
Oh, wow.
the bliss molecule. So the runner's high, that's what makes that when you eat chocolate, when you smoke cannabis. It's that happy feeling.
That
yeah,
is
it's
so
my
cool.
subtle nod to THC.
That's right.
Yeah.
THC.
Yeah, because it's not a THC molecule, right? But
Yep.
Oh wow, huh?
I say check you out.
Yeah, I'm a chemist.
So tell us about your nonprofit organization.
Oh, one of my most favorite things to talk about. So I have an organization called Simple Sacrifice, and we feed the homeless every Sunday in Baltimore City. And so it actually started way back in 1991. My parents came to me and my brother and asked us to come up with a community service project that we could do weekly. Looking back, I understand what my parents did.
Right.
We were very poor, and I think my parents saw that they were about to have teenagers who didn't understand what it meant to have nothing. Like, we were very blessed. We had a home, my dad had a job.
Right,
Like,
okay.
we didn't have great things, but we still had what we needed. And so my brother came up with the idea to feed the homeless. And so we went back in April of 91, made 10 lunches. And it took us 2 hours to deliver those 10 lunches. Like, we didn't know who to give them to. We were afraid we were going to offend people. And that day, we walked up to 5 guys splitting one piece of gum.
Oh, wow.
And we knew at that moment that this had to, like, this was it, right? Like, this, we needed to come back the next week. And so that's what we did. And then we came back the next week. At the height of Simple Sacrifice in the 90s, we were feeding 1,500 people a week.
Oh,
Where?
wow.
What locations?
So if you, the first spot was if you're on Baltimore Street, right before the block, there's McDonald's.
Right.
So on that corner is where we would meet. We had 2 vans that would come. So that van would stop and elderly people. So it was a little less crazy.
Okay.
And then there, where the parking lot is, right before the police station on Baltimore Street, it used to be a park. And that's the park we used to deliver to.
Okay.
Now we deliver at Shot Tower Park, which is just a few blocks away from it. Yeah, so we're feeding 1,500 people. My mom started to get more and more sick, and so after 5 years, we kind of had to let it go.
Okay.
But it was always a dream of mine to bring it back, and I loved it. I loved the people that we met there. Like, I learned what it meant to be a human and to really understand, like, everybody is not that far away from being
That's
in that
true.
very same
Oh,
position.
yeah.
It's one moment of bad luck or one string of bad luck can really put you in that. And so at 36, like I started to have a feel like I was like, oh, I want to start Simple Sacrifice back up when I'm 40. And I was working with a performance coach at that point, and I had told him that goal, and he said, why wait?
Yeah.
And at that moment, when I met with my coach, the Baltimore riots were going on at that same time. And I just felt like, why wait?
Right.
Like, man, like I loved doing this, and we're going to do it. And so that next Sunday was Mother's Day. And so we restarted it in my mom's honor. And every Sunday since May of 2015, we've delivered lunches. We have we have guys and ladies that we've known for years who come, and our whole goal is, food is plentiful a lot of places.
Yeah.
What is not is love and an acknowledgement of you being a human being. And that's what we do. Like when we go, our hashtags love and lunches, there's hugs. We know what's going on. We know when family members pass away, like they will travel just to come get a lunch, to come see us. And so we do it to show them love. But what we do is it's to end stigma of being poor and what it means to be hungry in the United States. Because everyone who's on the other side of that, they see someone with a sign, they don't look them in the eyes.
That's true.
I've seen people spit on people, they ignore them. We give someone an opportunity to meet with that person and to look them in the eye and to understand that as a human being. And then by the way they see us react to them, we're dancing in line, like these are our friends, for real. And it warms them up. And then they become a better person. And then ripple effect just continues to happen. And my whole goal is, for somebody to do this, and then they start to hand out 10 lunches in their town. And then someone hand out 10 lunches. Because that's how you create change. Like, not one person, not one group can change the world, but we can all change one person at a time. And so it is everything that we do for profit is to help further Simple Sacrifice. It is like my main passion is loving people out of the situations that they're in.
And it's so easy to touch a life, and I feel like we miss that because we're so consumed in our own lives. I think that's pretty awesome.
There's ways to help everywhere. If we just looked up for 1 second and said in our mind in the morning, today, I'm going to help somebody, that moment will appear for you. And you can, just think about it when someone does that for you. When some hero comes out and saves the day for you, however small it is, it really changes the trajectory of your day.
Yeah, just offering a kind word to somebody can have a big impact on their day.
Yeah.
And I feel like we take that for granted, that we have that kind of power to change a life.
I really commend you for that, because one of the things that irks me, just I'm just more action.
Yeah.
It's whenever there's a tragedy or something happens, everyone's like, my thoughts and prayers. We don't need thoughts and prayers.
Correct.
We need action. We need our feet on the ground. We need to do something. And here's a situation where, may not have started off with a lot of fanfare. It was just a simple thought, and it just grew. And now, and you never know who you influence. You never know who you're going to impact. So I really I commend you for that. And
thanks. I'm the lucky one. I get to be around pure love every single Sunday. Like, if you want to see what it is, like, please come anytime. Like, there is such humanity.
How will we find more information about it?
You can go to simplesacrifice.com.
Okay.
Yep. And we do it every Sunday at 10:30.
So have you, first of all, we commend you on that, on what you're doing, because, a lot of people are not doing that. A lot of people don't even want to be near the people.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Whether it's their pride or the way they feel like a person smell, or the way they looking at them, or what may have you. You all been doing this since 2015. Have you all been interviewed by like people like Fox 45 or 2 News? Or
were once one of our, it's actually probably my favorite moment. We had a gentleman named Ronnie who was completely blind and navigating the city and homeless. And we had known him for a couple of years. And one Sunday, right before Thanksgiving, he showed up and we could just tell, like, Ronnie was always singing happy, that something was wrong in he had traveled an hour to tell us his wife had passed away. And so we have such a great community that we were able to do a Facebook post, and we just wanted to get Ronnie off the street in a hotel, a nice suit, cleaned up for the funeral. And we were amazed at the outpouring from the community for Ronnie. And so we were actually, with the help of the community and family, and so here's what I want to say about that. We never know family situations as to why someone isn't there, because most of the time that person has done something. But with family, Ronnie's off the street now.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, and so that was ABC2 News. We wanted the community to see what happens when you come together. And it wasn't like, oh, someone gave a $10,000 donation. No, it was like 100 people who gave a $20 donation.
Right.
That really kind of helped spur that along.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. So y'all been doing it for how many years?
4 years this round.
4 years.
Yep.
And at no time, maybe you all have, but at no time have you all been recognized by at least the mayor or the governor?
Oh, well, we don't, no, we haven't, but it's not really
It's not
for
about
us,
that
it's just
for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I feel such an obligation for those friends we see every week, and when I don't see one of them for weeks on end, I start to worry that something's happening. And so for me, it's just, that's all that is, that human connection,
That's
is
your
worth more
family.
to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
is worth more to me than anything that.
But I understand. I understand what you're saying. I
Yeah.
really do. I feel what you're saying. But this is where this city falls short.
Well,
Because instead of you commending the people that are doing, that's making a change for Baltimore,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Instead of being in the negative side or whatever. These are the people like yourself, and others that don't get commended.
yeah. There's
They get
a lot
looked
of beautiful
over.
things. I would say there's probably what we see, maybe 5 or 10 different groups that come to the same park as us on the same day.
Okay.
So there's so much good going on in Baltimore City, and trust, I have a lot of feelings about what was said about our town. I was you messed
Yeah.
with the wrong people.
Oh, yeah.
But there's so much beautiful in that city, and don't get me wrong, there's so much ugly, because there shouldn't be food deserts that people are traveling an hour and a half to come get a sandwich from me, because that's the closest place that they can get
That's
something that's
crazy.
affordable for them. Yeah, there's so much great, and we can all, one person at a time.
Absolutely. I feel like in working on the other side, I work for a program that assisted homeless women with children. I feel like every year, policy comes along, programs are being cut.
Yeah,
It's like they don't care.
they don't.
Yeah, how can you consistently cut programs that people need
Yeah,
and not put anything new in place? If you cut it to revamp, add more programs to that program, it's different. But to just cut with nothing else to fall back on, it's mind blowing to me. And yet they come up with money all the time for weapons. When these people are running for office, money flows in from all directions,
Yeah.
but you cannot provide funding for your homeless population.
Yeah.
We're sad as a country because of that.
Oh, it's heartbreaking to see children who don't have breakfast or
Yeah.
lunch, or to see a family who comes and they ask for 5 lunches because they want their kids to have food for the week. Summertime is especially hard in the city because a lot of people who do have homes but are food insecure
Right.
lose those school lunches. And while there's programs, then we don't have transportation, and you have people who don't have money to get food. Now you have to pay for transportation. is this vicious cycle.
It's like the system is set up for them to fail.
Well,
in a
I mean,
sense,
I have
yeah.
a lot of theories about that because it
Yeah.
is. Like,
Yeah.
that's how this country is built on having a poor population, right? There's like no real necessity
Yeah.
for people to struggle that way. And so, in my mind, it is incumbent upon every single human to take care of their brother.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one meal a week or one meal a month. Like, if we all just did that, this gets wiped out very,
Oh yeah.
very easily when we
Yeah.
start to, but it's the have and have-nots, and that's how it
Yeah.
goes, right? Like, countries who are allowing restaurants to give food that they don't use away, we don't allow that in this country.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can't give one day expired bread to a homeless, like, it's so dumb.
It's
We're just
so dumb.
wasting
Yeah.
things. So that just goes to show they don't care.
They don't.
Because they made a policy that doesn't allow us to give food to people.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I have,
You know, Jackie, when you were saying about the programs as far as being cut and not following up, it just goes back to what we were saying. If it's not something that's going to benefit for
The government.
the government,
Let's just say that, you know.
then and they not making money, you know, then you know, it's like one person feels like that they want credit for everything.
Oh,
And
well,
a
yeah.
lot of
If
times that's what
if I
comes
can't get
down
it started
to,
myself,
then we're not doing it.
I don't want it.
Yeah, and that's ego.
You can't do it neither.
Yeah, that's ego.
You know, so
Yeah, that's like
crazy,
it pisses me off because we have resources, but because I didn't create this, we're not doing it. You know, I'm not going to make money from it. We're not doing it. Like, the hell with the poor people, and they're constantly cutting and cutting and cutting. It's like, gosh, I mean, we've become a country so disconnected from one another that it's about
for
me,
sure.
me, and not us as human beings.
Yep.
You know, it's disappointing, but it's also refreshing to know that we have people like you working to change that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
and this came from this inspiration came from your parents.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yep.
And it's so funny because I was just thinking as well, like one of the guys in my band, he works for a I'm not gonna say where he works, but like a BJ's or Costco.
Yeah.
Okay. And every Wednesday for the last 5 years, he takes like bread or stuff that's about to expire that they're going to throw away to my parents' house.
Okay.
And it started off where my dad was like, "Give it to me. I'll find somebody to give it to." And he gives. I don't know who he gives it to, but he takes it and he gives it.
That means the world
Yeah.
to whoever got that.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. That somebody
Especially
thought of them.
When it's something that's not, like, one of the things that I would love to see, and this is especially with like clothing donations, and you know, don't give your shitty, wait, am I allowed to cut? Don't
Yeah.
give your poopy stuff away. Like,
Exactly.
give the great, like, these are still human beings, you know.
Yeah.
And so for something that is like perceived as like a luxury to
Yeah.
get is, you know,
I did.
now
That's a
they
great
have
point.
that. They
That's-
got that.
That's
There are boxes in Maryland for clothes.
yep,
The yellow boxes.
uh-huh,
But here's the downfall.
Where did they go?
Driving past one where ain't nobody came
yep. They
to
just
collect
get
the
kind of,
stuff.
like, infested.
So now the stuff all sitting outside, getting rained on. The box is looking like an open trash can because there's so much stuff that's in
What,
there.
the St. Jude ones?
Huh?
Is it the St. Jude, the yellow ones?
So, like,
The
Planet
yellow,
Earth or
Yeah.
something.
yeah, the big.
Saint
Well,
Vincent.
is it St. Jude's?
I think it's St. Vincent.
Saint,
They have-
yeah. Well, it's one of them. But they're not being taken care of.
That, and you brought up a great point. People used to bring stuff to the shelter that was so trashy. Like, I would just throw that stuff out because because a person is homeless doesn't mean that they'll be happy to get this and
Oh my
it's
God, I can't
trash.
even give it to
If
them.
you
It's
won't wear it,
heartbreaking.
exactly. That used to burn me up because don't give it. I would look at that stuff and be like, oh no,
Stuff
this
smelling
is not
like
even.
smoke,
Exactly,
stuff like holes,
exactly.
and I'm just like, this is not. I wouldn't.
And that
give, 'cause
attitude
then,
that they should be lucky to have this. No, it's trash.
yeah.
You know, I always felt like that was like so disrespectful.
Yeah.
And then those same people, they want you to write them a receipt like they did some big shit. You know,
For a tax write-off.
All you did was
You
clean up.
bums.
I mean, we learned that as an organization. We don't do
Yeah.
clothing drives.
okay.
We do in the winter. We'll do like a warm kit. So we'll
Okay.
get certain things from Amazon. We make sure it's all like, because we can't. Like I'm not. They already feel bad. They're already
Right,
living,
right.
and then to go like, and here is the smoke-stained blanket for you to try to like lay in. And you're right though, they will take it and they will be appreciative of it
Yeah.
and they will say thank you. However, they deserve better.
They
than that.
deserve
because
better.
if you wouldn't lay in it, neither should they.
Absolutely.
Have you reached out to Giant? Now I know Giant is real big on
Yeah, we
day
get lots
day
of
old
donations
stuff,
from places.
pies, cakes,
Yep.
bread, and they don't mind. Like they
Yep.
hey, take it. If you got somebody come pick it up, you can take it all.
And that is like where we're leaning towards.
Okay.
In the 90s, it was a 2-day operation, right? So we went to all those places, and you need volunteers to kind of get that going. And so currently we just go shopping at one place and then get donations from like a bakery. Like some people
Okay.
like drop stuff off sometimes.
Yeah.
But
So you spoke about donations and bakery, not bakery, but volunteers. If someone is interested to join your village, is that through simplesacrifice.com?
Yep. And you,
Okay.
or like if you follow me on
Teenagers
Instagram, or
Yeah.
kids are the best because
Yes.
that's actually kids are less afraid, and the love that they immediately give.
Yeah.
It's not anything against adults. We just have all our biases that they walk into, and so you see a moment of like,
Yeah.
what am I about to do? Where kids just run up, and that's the love.
They're
and they get that
open-minded.
receipt.
Yeah.
They receive that same love back. So, I mean, we've had as young as like 3. handing
Just
out
don't
lunches
watch
with
them. Just don't watch them when they're giving it to somebody. Because when that person start crying, man, I can't believe I'm
yeah.
tearing up.
Yeah.
I mean,
can't
it
believe I'm
is.
tearing
I'm
up.
sure there are a lot of
I've had a
moments like that.
Oh yeah, and a
Yeah.
guy who tried to step out who stepped out behind my car as I was backing out, and I like slammed on the brakes, and rolled down the window, and I could tell. I was like, why is he not moving? So I got out. He wanted me to kill him. His wife another gentleman whose wife had passed away, and he had no other reason to live. And to have that like moment with, I mean, I was the only person there
Wow.
to help them in that, and to have that like desperation that people are facing. I mean, we are all here to help one another.
That's true.
Like our callings are so big to be someone's hug or to be that spirit to uplift them for that. Like it's not just in our circles, like it's strangers too. We're
Yeah.
connected so much bigger.
Yeah. My mom used to say, charity begins at home and spreads abroad. And I always use that because it's so true. We just have amazing power to be able to change somebody's life, but you have to start somewhere. And I think for some, they don't know how to begin, for one, or they overthink it and feel like you have to make this big donation where a donation of time would be helpful. Just a kind word to share with someone would be helpful. To be able to go up to somebody, you have a conversation, you hug them, that can mean the world. But you have to start. You have to be willing to start. And understand that a lot of us are one paycheck away
Yes,
from
Lord.
homelessness.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah.
If you think on that level, then maybe you'll be more willing to help.
But a lot of people
Because-
don't think that.
Yeah.
They think that they will forever have their job.
Yeah.
That unless they fuck up, they're not going to lose their job. So they'll always
It's a
have
reality
money.
for a lot of people.
Most people on
that
the
been on the job for like 20 years, and then they're let go for either downsizing or other reasons. And for those that live paycheck to paycheck, what do?
Yeah. I mean, you
The
skip
government
one.
doesn't care.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You skip one, a bad thing. I mean, most of the stories that we hear are that.
Yeah.
It was an injury at work. Insurance ran out.
Yep.
They couldn't work.
Yeah.
And then that was that.
Yep. You can be on the job for like 20 years and be let go for another spouse.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Unless you got a hustle,
Another spouse.
you know, unless
Well,
you got
now
a hustle that can make money, you know, like beating steel drums.
Nobody.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, and even that is like,
he just threw shade at you. He plays the steel drums. So
oh, that's funny. I was like, I mean, I don't know how much money you make on that in the street.
Oh, I didn't hear.
yeah, that went. I figured that went over your head. So
No one caught my joke. So.
your shoulder head.
listen,
Well,
man.
you know what?
You ain't been here
Keep
for a
up.
minute, so I had to throw the
Keep up.
low slide.
Yeah.
But keep up the good work. This
Oh,
is
thank
you.
such
Appreciate
a
it.
wonderful.
Thank you. We will.
Guys, simplesacrifice.com.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please show some love on the website. There's ways to donate. There's ways for volunteers. But this is a great
$3 a lunch.
$3 a lunch.
Yep.
Wow.
One
Okay.
lunch, even a half a lunch. Everything helps us.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, where before we end the show, give us all of your contact information.
Yeah. So currently for the magazine, the website's under construction, but that will be maryjanemag.com when it's up and live. But you can follow me on Instagram at Jill Mary Jane Mag or on Facebook at Jill Franquelli Rippy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any events coming up soon?
Yeah, so our first one will be in September, and it's going to be a Medicate and Create. And so our writers, and we believe one of the best ways to consume cannabis is artistically. And so we're going to do a creative writing class and teach people how to journal and learn themselves a little bit better while they understand how cannabis affects their mind creatively.
So how does cannabis from journal? So how are you linking the two?
Yes.
Are they journaling while
Oh yeah.
consuming
Yep.
it?
So my writer will teach a course, and then everyone will consume if they so choose. Like it's not necessary to do,
Right,
but you
right.
can consume while you answer
I'm
the
going to come
questions.
to that. That might be my reintroduction into
You
cannabis.
should.
I'm serious.
You
Yeah.
need to sit with someone. You need
Yeah.
to go low and slow, like a
Right,
big barbecue,
right,
and
yeah.
like low THC and a puff at a time, and
Okay.
low pining, and you should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm
We
traumatized.
won't have you running
so,
through the street.
yeah, I'm
I
gonna
mean, I
have to
think
try.
everybody has that story. Like anyone who doesn't, they did once.
They did. Right, that's true. Yeah.
And they remember what happened that time.
Yeah.
They're like, never again.
Yeah.
You think you're going to instantly turn into Cheech and Chong or something?
And let me tell you, when I go to my son's place, he's always baking and he's into the plants and things of that nature, oils. He makes his own butter and stuff. And I'm like, to think, years ago, when you were on the other side of things, I was flushing your shit down the toilet.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now, this is a big industry, a big growing industry, and many people benefit, on the medicinal side. I'm like, who knew? But I'm glad you stuck with it,
Oh,
So,
yeah. I mean, that's the best part when you
Yeah.
can do it in front of people you love.
Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
he took the high road.
But
I've been waiting all show to say
You've been
that.
saving that?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you got this.
you got it in.
Right. So what's next for you?
Yeah. Well, right now in September, I'm heading to Portland for the Cannabis Science Conference.
Wow.
Out there, we'll be emceeing out there the analytical track, learning. We have like the best and brightest scientists in cannabis really talking about the research that they're trying to get into,
Okay.
some of the findings that we're doing. So, yeah, that's really exciting. And then I'm looking forward to getting the first issue of Mary Jane out.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
What
Yeah.
a movement. Wow.
That's definitely pretty cool. So your wife, is she into the cannabis? Or
Yeah, she
Okay.
is too. Like our, since this is like the Intimacy Chronicles, like we consume at night together. Like that's
Okay.
one of our like favorite things to do. She's a patient as well, and so just at the end of the night, I imagine like most couples who probably sit down and drink a
Yeah.
glass of wine.
That's true.
We sit down and we have a joint and we talk, and it's such a good like
That's
nightcap
an
for the night.
intimate,
Yeah.
a nice intimate connection.
And it's a good
Yeah.
20 minutes of talking, right?
Right,
Because
right.
we're not on our phones. Like it's just very dedicated time to
That's
doing
pretty
that.
cool.
Can you repeat that again?
For all the girlfriends out there. Yeah, we smoke cannabis every night together, and it connects us because of the conversation that we get to have. I mean, there are even strains that do other things out there. So.
And the part about not being on your phone.
Oh, don't be on your phone. That ruins it. For sure.
Yeah. And I think we always talk about that, how people spend more time touching their devices than each other.
Oh, we're so connected to electricity and like metal and not human and earth.
Yeah.
Like, I think we spend more time touching plastic things.
I agree.
And fake things than we do real things.
Yeah.
Plastic things.
Probably vibrator. I couldn't even get
That
it
doesn't
out.
count.
Yeah.
That's not really plastic.
Boom, 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 boom.
Exactly. So this concludes the intimacy. Close out. I gotta let you. Can you play that song? So before we close out tonight, Meshach Music.
Meshach Rogers.
Yeah, he sent me a new tune that he's about to release, and I promised to play it on the show tonight. So let's hear it, Nick. And it goes perfect with tonight's topic.
Since you in liquid form, you whining and jamming to the soca. Now that you have tight pants on, every time you whine I see your true color. You're born to juke, get them and them hook from the way that you dingle lay. It is conclusive, so I have to say, deep in your DNA is a natural thing in your waist that does make you the hottest girl in the place. It deep in your DNA from the way you ramage. I go take a walk with you any day. So turn it up, roll it up, buck it up, make them out on them pop, 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 pop. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. You alone that does hot up this spot. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. Just make them out on them pop, 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 pop. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. Make them out and them stop. It deep in your DNA is a natural thing in your waist that does make you the hottest girl in the place. It deep in your DNA from the way you ramage. I go take a walk with you any day. So turn it up, roll it up, buck it up, make them out on them pop, 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 pop. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. You alone that does hot up this spot. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. Just make them out on them pop, 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 pop. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. Make them out and them stop. When we meet up face to waist, my soul appreciate. You they cannot duplicate. You never standing still, you bound to gyrate. You have the look, get them on them hook from the way that you ramage. It is conclusive, so I have to say, deep in your DNA is a natural thing in your waist that does make you the hottest girl in the place. It deep in your DNA from the way you ramage. I go take a walk with you any day. So turn it up, roll it up, buck it up, make them out on them pop, 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 pop. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. You alone that does hot up this spot. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. Just make them out on them pop, 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 pop. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. Make them out and them stop. Since you in liquid form, you whining and jamming to the soca. Now that you have tight pants on, every time you whine I see your true color. You're born to do, get them and them hook from the way that you dingle lay. It is conclusive, so I have to say, deep in your DNA is a natural thing in your waist that does make you the hottest girl in the place. It deep in your DNA from the way you ramage. I go take a walk with you any day. So turn it up, roll it up, buck it up, make them out on them pop, 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 pop. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. You alone that does hot up this spot. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. Just make them out on them pop, 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 pop. Turn it up, roll it up, girl. Make them out and them stop.
Meshach Music. You can follow him on Instagram at Meshach Music, and let him know what you thought of the song tonight. And we will see you guys next week, same time, same place. Many thanks to Jill
Thanks for
Franquelli
having
for
me.
joining us tonight. She's welcome to come back anytime. I'm
Thanks for the
definitely
enlightenment.
interested in her
Thank you.
movement.
Yeah.
Follow
Really good
her
info.
on Instagram at, who was it?
Jill Mary Jane Mack.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Jill Mary Jane Mag. Good night, folks.
Nice.
Deuces.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are awesome.